Founder and CEO and designer of ABL Denim, inclusive design business dedicated to providing clothing design solutions for people with with special needs. My guest right now is Stephanie Alves. Stephanie, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Mark?
Did I get your name correct this time?
You did.
Oh,
Thank you
good.
Very much.
You're quite welcome. How's the weather on the West Coast? Any rain out there?
No, you really want me to go on about that?
No, not really, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. We'll do a little bit of a rain dance in the next 25 minutes during our conversation. So,
the sun is fine isn't so bad. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Especially when it's 25 degrees out here, the sun is here, and I'm really happy about that. So you did something very, very unique. You actually listened to your mother because at 10 years old, you loved to sew, and then you have a brother with a disability, and she said to you, maybe off the cuff one day, hey, why don't you design something that your brother would be able to wear?
That is true, except it took me decades to listen to her.
Well, that's pretty normal, right?
Probably so, but yes, in the long run, she was right. I did start my career basically in the fashion industry because I wanted to do fashion. I wanted to see what I had in my head as a designer. And it wasn't until decades later when my stepsister became a wheelchair user due to 2 back surgeries that caused nerve damage. And she expressed that she really wasn't getting dressed because clothing was just too difficult to get in and out of. So only for special occasions would she actually get dressed, and was living in scrubs. So I looked at her clothing and I thought, well, what if I made them easier to get in and out of? And she said, well, sure, that would be great. So I then started to look around online to see what was out there. And the only clothing was really either hospital clothing or clothing for seniors. And while, of course,
not
that's
too appealing.
Necessary, but, there are many people of all ages that want to wear the clothing they either wore before or just clothing that's in style. So whether somebody has a medical condition from a young age or from a later age, or is hurt in an accident where their life changes instantly, clothing is something many people take for granted. And
sure.
Their biggest problem is, can they afford something they like? Can they get the same style that their friend is wearing? Something so kind of we take for granted. And for people who have trouble getting dressed every day, functionality is as important, if not more so, than the styling.
Well, it's interesting that, you had this concept, this epiphany, and instead of diving headfirst into it, which I'm sure you could have with your vast experience as a fashion designer, you took a very, very interesting and very smart, intelligent first step. You started sewing by modifying people's clothes to find out what their needs were and what actually in your mind would work on a larger scale, I imagine.
Yeah, I actually had to do that, Mark, because as a fashion designer, you have to be very technical. You have to understand garment construction, how things are made, and so on, and all the details. But I really didn't know enough about the challenges that people face with different disabilities. So I had to research that. So by starting what is essentially a tailoring business, whereas just as if you were to take your pants around the corner to be hemmed, I had to see what specific problems people had when they had specific conditions or issues, so that I could come up with the right solution. Then in time, I had seen a good cross-section enough to say, okay, I can make a few styles now that address a cross-section of needs. So, that was essential, actually, because I didn't need to make just a nice looking pair of jeans that worked for a few people. They had to have a reason to be. There are plenty of jean lines out in the market already, and that people who either are wheelchair users, who have dexterity issues, limited mobility, they just have too much trouble wearing them, so it really had to have functionality.
At one point, did you realize that denim was the key success behind you're going to be your new driving force in your line?
Well, what I did with the tailoring business, I did the Abilities Expo, which is the largest trade show for people with disabilities. It's actually a business-to-consumer show. It's in 5 cities across the U.S. And I took a table one year and with the tailoring business, and I basically asked everybody, what are you missing? What can't you wear that you want to wear? What's the piece of clothing that you have the most difficulty with? And people came up with all kinds of answers, and everybody has a different thing of what they miss wearing and want to wear. But everyone said jeans. So I said, well, that's what I'll start with then.
That's
jeans.
great. I mean, jeans are so ubiquitous. I mean, from Obama to, the hot dog vendor around the corner.
I know. I think it's written into the Constitution that Americans have to have jeans.
Actually, the Constitution's written on denim.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
So, and of course, denim is a hard one to tackle to make them more comfortable. So there was a lot of research done and a lot of trial and error. And of course, testing the pieces on people with disabilities, especially wheelchair users, because while most of the styles work for people, whether they are ambulatory or seated, they have to work for somebody who is seated because pants, when somebody is seated all the time, they must be higher in the back. There's so many issues that they face. I mean, the fit, it has to be a little bit more generous around the stomach area because some people get organ filling, which also would then cover people when they get a little older, they get a little more stomach, too.
Absolutely, sure.
So they're fit so that they would be comfortable and a little bit expansive in the middle area there so that the legs still fit nice and sleek. Otherwise, people used to have to size up to accommodate the stomach, and they'd have baggy legs. And I'm always trying to say, no, let's make sure you have a good fit here so that your legs look nice and smooth, and they shouldn't be too long because then they bunch up and it's not flattering on you. So they can be fit to people in a general way that works for most people. If you make a few different styles, different fabrications, they should have stretch. They need to have fewer seams that don't rub, pockets in different placement so that they're easier to access. They have to have a special button that's more of a slide button versus a buttonhole. That's just too difficult for most people.
Or a hook and bar closure.
Exactly. Zippers need to have poles. The jeans need to open more than a regular pant, so that people, if they're using a wheelchair, they can transfer in and out of them. It can be a big production. So apparently they can be very helpful either to the wearer or their caretaker, if they have a caretaker, helping them to dress.
Stephanie Alves, please forgive my lack of fashion industry acumen, but I do know that, they do have, are they called the model fitters that are actually, they just stand there and they get fit, because these are going to be like for, you could say J. Crew or a Gap, this particular perfect body, and they make the clothes around that person. What is that person called? What kind of model? Fit model?
A fit model.
Fit model.
A fit model, yeah.
So would you have the same thing in this particular category?
Yes. I find somebody of what is considered a standard size or thereabouts, and that person is, while everybody is different, you must set your own standard. So this has to be somebody that is maybe more of a general size, doesn't have atrophy or too much atrophy, right? But you want somebody who is more average than, say, a fit model for a very high-end women's jean line. Well, they use a very young and very thin model because that is their standard. They want to have a young, skinny customer. I want to fit all types of bodies. So this fit model is used for actually garment making specifics, but it's also, that person is also critiquing the jean for functionality, for comfort. Is the jean high enough in back? Can they reach the zippers? Can they grab onto the zipper pulls if they have mobility issues or dexterity issues, I should say, with their fingers? You also want to consider in the fabrics that you choose, for instance, Are they smooth? Do they work with the different slide boards that people use for their wheelchairs?
Sure.
So while you can't cover every detail in every style, you try to address these issues because you have customers who need you to know these things.
Absolutely,
so of course, sure. And now we really do design new styles. We're pretty new, of course, only a couple of years old, but we design when people ask us enough times for something specific. That's when I start to get to work on something new.
Like the sensory jeans?
The sensory jeans was born out of parents' requests. I knew more about physical disabilities, whereas the sensory jeans, 80% of children with ADD, ADHD, and autism have sensory perception disorder, which it gives them tactile sensitivities. They don't like seams, they don't like tags, no metal, no zippers, nothing rubbing, nothing pushing. Parents tell stories about kids pulling their clothes off a lot. And while there are a couple of clothing lines for kids for sensory issues, denim has always been the challenge because it's just too rough and there's too many seams on there. So I used a new type of denim, which is like a sweatshirt denim. And thanks to the rise of what is called athleisure in the clothing industry.
Whoa.
Yeah.
New term.
Yeah, this is a new term, athleisure. Yeah, nice made-up term, signifying more sports clothes. Integrated into fashion.
Does that breathe as well?
Yes, it definitely breathes. It's mostly cotton. So the denim is very soft. It looks like a real denim. It is woven like a real denim, and yet it feels like a sweatpants. So the sensory jean is made in that, as well as a couple of other styles that I have in the adults lines. And we made these for kids first because it's mostly kids that suffer through this. But then we started to make some larger sizes into teenage and young adult sizes because these children grow up, as parents told me. But really every detail was made according to what parents wanted and then, of course, fit on a child with these issues. So that was challenging.
I imagine with a fit model, a child who has autism, just to watch them, because it's almost like you have to have a test focus or model group to understand if it's effective. Is the product working? Are they comfortable in it?
That's right. That's exactly right. And they will tell you they're very.
Oh, sure.
They even make the job easier than the adults because they'll tell you right off the bat, no, no, that seam, I don't like it. So there was a number of fittings, and now that jean is working, and people would like it in different fabrics. That'll be the next challenge, is to have it in another soft fabric that works, so they can wear it for a school uniform and so on. And so that's been very interesting. And that sensory jean is working.
It must really warm your heart because on abldenim.com, your website, in the review and testimonial section, I mean, what you've been doing and continue to do for people's lives. I mean, we take clothes for granted. Of course, everyone likes to have, a new look or a new suit, a new shirt, new shoes. Right. My wife came home with 2 new pairs of boots last night she got for 50% off. I mean, I haven't seen her this happy in years. But the reality is, even jeans, to fit into a pair of jeans, everyone loves, putting on that new pair of jeans. You have your favorite pair. And it sounds like, sometimes we can obviously take things like this for granted. But, if you read these pages, which you have, you put them up on your website, it obviously crystallizes what you've done. Well,
we all feel better when we put on a piece of clothing that makes us feel good about ourselves. So to be able to wear something that you need to get dressed every day, and to wear something that makes you feel good about how you look and how you feel, and yet it still works for you. You can use the bathroom and wear something that's in style like anybody else on the street. is a big deal. And yeah, it's when somebody says that I haven't worn jeans in years, or I really love these, they work for me, it makes my whole day, of course. It makes it all worthwhile. It's what it's all about.
And I imagine your brother is quite stoked as well.
Oh, yeah. He was very happy to get his pair.
Yeah. And you're getting a lot of accolades, which is great. You've been in the Fashion Times, New York Times Fashion Magazine, CBS 2 News, of course, Quartz.com, California Apparel News, and the Christopher and Dana Reeves Foundation, New Mobility Magazine. You know, a lot of exposure media-wise. And did you also win a Small Business Award, Grant?
I did from Google and Chase Bank.
That's great.
It was a competition, which really helped us move forward. And but it's still new. It's still a new business, But of course, that was really great.
I mean, you've been in this business, for over 2 decades, and you've obviously accomplished a lot. You had your own line, eponymous line, which I have no idea what that is, but it sounds really cool. And you had
the line under my name.
There you go. Do you still
have a shop in the East Village?
Yeah, you still do.
And it's Soho. No, that store's long gone.
Okay.
And then it was in Soho as well. That was in the early '90s. And I did make a line of clothing, a fashion line for women, for a short time, maybe 4 years, 3-4 years. Yeah.
And also appeared in Saks Fifth Avenue and a lot of other top-end stores. So, I mean, you've got there. You made a name for yourself, right? Fair to say?
Yeah. Now, look, there are so many designers in New York City. Of course.
Now, would you have imagined, 10 years ago, that if someone said to you, you know what, you should make a clothing line for people with disabilities?
It would have been an abstract concept, although I'm familiar with it due to my family members. But I think the impetus really was when my stepsister became a wheelchair user, because then it was so direct that I said, my gosh, this is what I should be doing. This is what I should be doing with the skill that I have. Do something useful. I mean, designing is a wonderful thing. It's something that, anything artistic is part of you and you're compelled to do it. But to do something really useful with your skill that helps other people is just a no-brainer.
Absolutely. Yep. And you're doing that on a national level. Your clothes are found in Walmart, correct?
Yeah, we have one style that is at Walmart.com online. And we have been selling a little bit overseas as well. It's starting to grow.
Made in America.
Distributors there. Made in America, that's right. Yes, it's made in America.
Is that something that was very important to you?
Yeah, and also it's made here in Los Angeles, which is the big center for the denim industry. So, it was important to me because we'd like to grow the business here, of course.
Now, Stephanie, you sound like, in addition to being a smart woman, you're very creative in what you've done and continue to do. Have your eyes continued to be open almost on a daily, weekly, monthly basis on different ways that your clothing line can improve the lives or different platforms, like you want to see, obviously, models and actors in TV commercials that are with real disabilities, not just acting or playing the role on TV shows, et cetera. Because I find it to be, once you start getting into this field, the disability field, where over 55 million people with disabilities in America reside, that runs the gamut, that it becomes more of like, what can I do? How can we take this to the next level and help more and more people? And visibility is huge.
Oh yeah, it's really great to see that there's been major changes in the inclusivity, I should say, right? Mm-hmm. From all walks of life, and finally, it's 8825 this year, celebrating the Americans with Disabilities Act. But the fact that there are so many more people with disabilities used as models and shown having mainstream jobs, acting jobs, and so on, is really how it should be. Everyone's different. And people don't understand that unless they know somebody who has a disability. And yet it can be anyone. And there are many, you can't see their disabilities, and you don't know. And many people may be hurt in an accident, and all of a sudden people look at them differently. And there's really there's no change in who they are, their mind. They are certainly going through something a lot more extreme. So why shouldn't they have daily living aids that happen to make them feel good at the same time? Another thing that we are doing is we're working on a wearable tech idea, and that's in the sensory arena for children. And but that's going to take a few years.
Well, good. Since we're on the a good segue to my idea for you. So I'm visually impaired, and I have some friends that are blind or visually impaired, worse off than I am, and I've never asked them how do they actually get dressed. And I kind of know because of things I've read, but would there be a product line, potential product line where things are kind of like built in, so you know what colors things are, and you kind of make a collection that are all interchangeable for people who are blind or visually impaired?
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
You heard it here on Insight. What's today's date?
Yeah.
14th of January, 2016. I'll just take a small royalty fee. That's all.
Noted.
Because as you heard probably at the beginning, neither you or I won the Powerball. So, I wanted to really go to Fiji.
That's right. I know. That's right. But instead, we can make another line of clothes. There are so many things that can be done, and you just have to take it one step at a time and take that idea and actually, if you believe in it, just run with it. And you have to push for it to make it happen.
As I mentioned before, it's never been, no one wants to be disabled, but there's never been a better time to be disabled. And point in fact here is like Handy Strong magazine. It's a very glamorous magazine, glossy, high-end, where people are, the models in there. It's all about life, reality, employment, accessibility, information. And that is a great platform for, your product to be promoted, because the community really, once they grasp a product that they love, it just spreads like wildfire.
Yeah, I think it takes a little bit longer in the disability community. People want to know and trust that you really are able to deliver a product that does what it says it's going to do. Because if they like you, they're going to support you. And if it doesn't work for them, that's it. They'll say no.
Yeah, no second chances.
In the sense that they are, fashion business is very fickle. There's a new line around the corner every minute. If you don't like one, you can go to another. There's so much to choose from. And here, this market is so much narrower. And yet there's so many people that need accessible clothing. But I think there's the arena of inclusive design, whether it's for your home, cooking equipment, all kinds of things. It's really, really opening up. And I suppose because the concentration of baby boomers, that are turning 65 every day that you hear, the numbers are huge, and people of certain ages are not old fogies anymore. They're wearing fashionable clothes. I mean, everybody seems to, they say the 50s is the new 40 and so on, or is that the other way around? 50s is the new 40.
You got it right, yeah.
And you know what I mean? Yeah, so just that fashion it goes with the person, and it just transcends time, really.
Sure.
So there is a lot more room for inclusive design, I think, in every area.
Stephanie Alves is my guest this morning on Insight. My name is Mark Farrell. She's the founder and CEO and designer of ABL Denim, a line that's really taking off online for people with disabilities. You touched on something very interesting a moment ago, Stephanie, that I want to go back to, because the fashion industry, as we all know, and if you don't know that much about it, if you even seen the movie, Devil Wears Prada, how cutthroat it is, right? And you mentioned something interesting a moment ago, how, every minute seemingly there's another line, another apparel that you could choose from. Do you love the fact that not only are you serving a great captive community that can greatly benefit from your line, but the competition is nothing like the industry that you're accustomed to?
Right. There are so few people doing this. You have to have some insider relationship with the disability community to not only gain people's trust, but to understand what their needs are. I mean, this has to be practical. These pieces have to work. So yeah, there's very, very little, and it is really not cutthroat. Everyone in the disability community, all the different businesses, everyone helps one another, because the goal is the same: to provide something, a service for people that works for them and add some quality to their daily life. So, it's actually quite refreshing. Businesses really do help each other, and it's absolutely great.
Without being too practical minded right now, because obviously a lot of research and thought and goes into it, where would you like to see the clothing line grow in the next 5-7 years?
Well, we would like to be the main source for pants and jeans worldwide, and because it's a huge market, we want to be able to offer different products for people, different price levels, and get this wearable tech item out for autistic kids. So that will really help a lot of people.
That must have been a major consideration, Stephanie, the fact that a lot of people with disabilities, depending on their disabilities, where they are in the world and age bracket, et cetera, are on limited incomes or fixed incomes. So making a pair of jeans not so far out of reach. I mean, a regular pair of Levi's off the shelf for what, $40 to $50?
Yeah, and of course with all these features, you have extra zippers, you have different pulls, different buttons, you have unusual seams or the lack of seams. They're very expensive to make. So you do really need for the community to be supportive. If they like the products, they need to support it to keep it going. It's made for them. So, the law of production is you need to make more for prices to come down. So when you're a small company, it's very hard to offer things at the types of prices that even a Levi's can, where they're even at $40 and $50. It's very hard to meet those prices because they produce, hundreds of thousands of jeans. So even to get to thousands of jeans of a style, requires real support from the community. So, and the more they would support a product made for them, the better it can be, the more one can offer. So it's a two-way street, right? It's just like the old small town having local shops. They're supported by the neighborhood. So we hope that people understand that we can make it better for them if they're also supportive. Yeah.
Are you still Go ahead.
Yeah. No.
Are you still
please.
a fanatical sewer?
I don't have the time. Not really. No, the jeans are made in factories, of course.
No, I didn't think you made the jeans, but still in terms of a hobby.
No time for hobbies anymore these days.
Well, that's a good thing, things are working.
Time. Yeah. I do a little bit of handwork here and there, but no, I don't really have much time for sewing any longer. Now we leave that to the pros.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Being visually impaired, the concept of actually holding a needle and even just putting a thread through it would be a minor miracle for me. So I always take my stuff to my local tailor, and I'll tell you, there's nothing like having a good tailor that you trust, especially for fine suits.
Yes, that's true. There are blind sewers in factories in the South in the U.S.
Really?
They are disabled sewers, and they're government programs, and they make clothing for veterans and so on. There are some really wonderful programs that, as we grow, I hope to be able to take part in, to do production with some of these organizations. That is also a goal, to be able to have a business that can hire
inclusivity,
more
absolutely.
people with disabilities. Absolutely. And that takes being a bigger business.
Sure. A little bit of a sidebar here that you just reminded me of. I actually went to a place that refinishes furniture or new furniture. And at the beginning of the show, I was telling I love carpentry, and being visually impaired, it's never stopped me. I've built some really great pieces, and people even say to me, my God, this is even better than what a pro would make. So I actually was in a rush to get this bar top finished before the holidays because we were hosting for Christmas. And it didn't come out as good as I like. My wife wants to put pendants on it, and I would be able to see the brush strokes. So I'm like, no way, I got to get it redone. So I take it to this place down the shore in New Jersey, and these guys are great, and they do a wonderful job. And on the way out, I said, wow, this is really beautiful. It was like a 3x5 wooden flag, made out of almost like a butcher block style, with where the stars and stripes would be were either light wood or a mahogany wood. And long story short, the actual star portions were raised stars, all made out of wood. I inquired about who made this. he said the gentleman, who's about 30 years old, is blind and deaf.
Wow, that's something.
And he said to me, when he dropped it off through his assistant, he said to me, there's a little bit of a niche, a void that needs to be filled in. He goes, Mark, it took me about 10 minutes to find this thing. That's how almost imperceptible it was. So, I mean, the talent out there is just unbelievable. You can do what you want. It's going to take you longer to get to that skill level, and we all have different interests in life, but it just boggles the mind what one can do with or without, one of your senses intact.
Yeah, desire counts for a lot.
Certainly does. Stephanie Alves, real pleasure having you on. Thank you for doing what you do, and giving people the ability to wear jeans it's almost like comfort food on your body,
Thank you, Mark. That's kind. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
People need to visit ABL.com, ABLDenim.com, ABLDenim.com. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell people that ABL stands for Adaptive Brand and Lifestyle. Nice little acronym there. Stephanie Alves, all the best to you.
Thank you.
Hope you
Thank you so much, Mark.
Hope you get some rain real quick soon out there.
Okay, good.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
We will, hopefully. Bye now. Bye. Thanks.
Stephanie's a great person doing some incredible things. And that's what I love about this show, because, reading and getting all the material I get and all the lists I'm on for magazines and websites, you just come across some amazing people. And it's fantastic to learn that one person, who obviously is very good at their job, being in the fashion industry for, over 2 decades, can transfer their skill set to help a whole nother population. Very, very cool. And by all means, and no stretch of the imagination, can I say that I'm doing that, but in a little bit of a way, coming from radio, when I made my decision about 4 or 5 years ago, when the last radio station I worked for sold and, fired everybody, I had been thinking about, sharing my stories of personal adversity, et cetera. And that's how I started making my business, speaking business, and going to corporations and schools K through 12 and colleges and sharing my stories about overcoming adversity, drugs and alcohol, mental health, overcoming obstacles, and anti-bullying, anti-teasing. So it's interesting how everyone has something, they can contribute to another person in life, whether it's on a big scale, smaller scale, whatever that scale may be. It's something that's very valuable, and we shouldn't probably take that for granted, because I don't want to get too deep here and too wishy-washy, but the reality is we all have something we can offer for somebody, whether it's just volunteering our time, donating funds, etc. So food for thought with the new year, only a couple days in the swing here, and the fact that chances are, if you're listening, you didn't win Powerball, so you can't take all that money and do so much good with it, because I'm sure you had some grandiose plans. I certainly did. I was like, all right, well, I'll start a nonprofit, and I'll definitely benefit people with disabilities, and how I would do that and all that stuff would certainly have to be sussed out. But the idea is there, and it's great to read about people of this caliber. And if you're ever interested, and if you have a disability, I would love to hear from you to find out what you read or what technology you would like to have improved, because this is what it's about, is getting the word out there, spreading the word as a consumer, because the power of social media to communicate this need is huge, because manufacturers and designers want to hear from you, whether it's a piece of technology, clothing, a car, anything, digital devices for reading, because this is a huge diverse population, 55 million strong and counting, for people with disabilities from the latest consensus that came out a couple years ago. And again, that runs the gamut from being blind, ADHD, you name it. Parkinson's runs the whole gamut. But let me know, and/or put it out there on social media, and/or contact the company or a product line that you think could benefit from your idea. If you think it's really good, I would say trademark it or copyright it. And then you can approach somebody and or sell your idea. And that's all I got. I'm tapped out. My name is Mark Farrell. Thank you so much for tuning in for another fine Thursday. I can't say it's a fine edition of Insight, because that would be boastful. I think it was a pretty good show, though. Special thanks to Stephanie Alves, President and CEO of ABL Denim. And check her out at abldenim.com. And always check me out anytime, this show and any show, at prn.fm archives under Insight. Mark Farrell saying, have a great day. See you next Thursday.